Hey y'all, it's Brett or BPRadiant here for another episode of Rad Labs, where we test the spiciest brews and experiments and put it to the test. Today's episode, we're going to be playing the First Sliver, probably the most balanced 5-color commander we've seen come to Arena. I'm very excited. The deck performed where I thought it would be, which is strong but not overbearing when compared to other commanders. It felt like a very balanced game plan with plenty of interaction and reactivity from our opponents that could help us win or lose. How we're going to test this is actually going to be with our personalized litmus test, and this is going to tell us how bright the deck's future is going to be. At the end of the episode, we're going to rack up and see where it lands. How we're going to do this is going to be through a 5-game series against different commanders. If we ever go up against the same commander, we are going to skip it and go next, because we do want to show a diversity of the game and matches we play. Now, before we get started, if you want to real quick drop me a like or subscribe to the channel for more content like this, I'd greatly appreciate it. And with that out of the way, let's get started. Alright, so quick deck tech on the First Sliver. So, the First Sliver has Cascade, which basically means that you will exile cards from the top of your library until you cascade into a spell that costs less than the creature's mana value. In this case, I would look into Swing its 4 value or lower. Something else makes this important is that he also gives other Sliver spells Cascade. And so what's important about that is that anything that has a Sliver typing, which is going to be our Slivers, or in the case of Brawl, because we don't have a lot of good Slivers, also our Changelings are also Slivers. So once it's in the battlefield, we could theoretically hit a 5-drop, a 4-drop, a 3-drop, a 2-drop, a 1-drop, and just like have 5 Slivers hit the battlefield immediately. I think this is incredibly strong. Even though I do kind of think the First Sliver is the weakest of the 5-color commanders, I do have a lot of fun playing him because he just kind of lets these like really big hype moments happen out of nowhere. I always like Cascade, and until I get Maelstrom Wanderer, this is what I'm going to do. So we built the deck around trying to be Slivers and win with the aggro game plan. So of course we have in a lot of things that are Slivers, as well as our things that are going to become Slivers. So in this case, the Metallic Mimic, Base Agent, like all of our Changeling types are things that become Slivers and will benefit from our Sliver auras. We then of course also put Maskwood Nexus for the few things that aren't Slivers when we cast them. We'll still get buffs, and it can self-make 2/2 Slivers. This doesn't really help too much. Realistically, it helps our Mana Dorks, Metallic Mimic, and we have one more non-changeling, Glasspool Mimic as well. We're doing this mostly as a way to produce bodies that are Slivers, that isn't just going to be running our Sliver Hive for the land. We originally had a more diverse thing with both Arcane Adaptation and Maskwood Nexus with a couple of non-Slivers that would kind of like benefit that, but we instead wanted to kind of pool it down, and I think cutting the Maskwood Nexus isn't what I wanted to do, but I did cut the Arcane Adaptation. The other thing we have that really benefits our Slivers is going to be Reflections of Littjara. Since we are a tribal deck in blue, we can use this to double up on our Slivers, which I think can be incredibly strong, to be completely honest, since this lets us get 2 Bone Slice Slivers, for instance, and then they have 2 different ones they have to remove to get rid of our Double Strike. I think that it just lets us kind of also go wide on the board, and I had a lot of fun with that. 2 things to kind of note. First, War of Invention can pull up a lot of artifact cards from the deck, depending on what we need. If we need mana, we can hit 3 or less for that. Most of the time we're looking for 4 or 5 to grab our Maskwood Nexus or Vanquisher's Banner, though of course, honestly, I think Herald's Horn is also a really good hit, since it decreases the amount we cast it for, but not the amount that it costs, so that the Cascade trigger doesn't actually get lowered. I did want to put it in there because those 3 artifacts I think do really kind of make the deck. We of course have a couple enchantments as well. We already talked about Reflections of Littjara, but I also put in Sunbird's Invocation. Since we are kind of playing a themed deck around Slivers and Cascade, what better way to effectively get a second trigger of your commander by getting a Sunbird's Invocation? And what's best about this is since you do cast the card you reveal Sunbird's Invocation, if it's a Sliver, it itself will also then Cascade. So this could allow you to effectively double Cascade with the First Sliver, just off of casting him and other things. So we put this in mostly because like it seems like a fun card and a way for us to potentially cast things that, if we do have decks, they're going to have our First Sliver removed pretty frequently, which isn't, most places try to remove it once or twice. But this gives us like a secondary way to do it, which I really like. As for our removal, we are running a pretty decent removal suite with things like Casualties of War, Mythos of Nethroi, ways that we can do to target multiple things. We wanted all of our removal to be pretty flexible with things like Assassin's Trophy as well, since we wanted to be able to hit just about anything. As far as our mana base goes, we are running a pretty stock 5-color mana base. I did skew it heavily towards our 3 main colors, which is going to be blue, green, and red, is what we have like most of our stuff in. And then we have white and black as our like tertiary kind of like hits. We have in as much of multi-color lands as we could fit in there without being too crazy. 2 more kind of like what I'm going to call tech cards that I personally am very high on. First is Shaper's Sanctuary. I am loving this. I've played this in the sideboard for Mono Green and Historic Brawl, Historic just in general for a long time. And I think that this card can really generate a lot of value against certain decks that require to target your opponent's creatures very frequently. Because, you know, you're just going to keep drawing cards, and that's exactly what you want to do with a deck like this. The other, what I'm going to say is kind of a tech card that I decided to put in here is going to be 2 different counterspells in Negate and Swan Song. So what we're looking for is that these are effectively going to give us protection on the turns we're weakest, which is basically if we don't hit our Haste Sliver, or we can play around it to kind of like buy ourselves a turn to protect the First Sliver before we call it. The last kind of tech card that I don't think you're going to see in a lot of Sliver decks is going to be Citywide Bust. This is one I've actually used to great effect. We only have 1 sliver with toughness 4 or greater, and that's the First Sliver. Everything else is 3 or less, and they're just getting buffed. And there's very few things that give more than just this +0, +1, and you can kind of play around that to some degree. And so I think the Citywide Bust can actually be an incredible board wipe for if you're even, because you can get rid of like 2, 3, 4 your opponent's creatures, while only really affecting 1 creature on your side of the board. And I think that's incredibly strong to have anything nearing a one-sided board wipe at this mana cost. The other option we had that we actually replaced for it was River's Rebuke, which is the other one I would consider. But I think that since you can potentially cascade into Citywide Bust, you may want to keep it. Or you may even be able to just want to use it right then and there to try to get a win off. Whereas I felt that the 6-drop River's Rebuke would never be cascaded into and couldn't kind of become like an emergency button if we're struggling. Yeah, that is the deck. Let's get into the gameplay. All right, game number 1. We are against the Mudman as our test subject today with Feather the Redeemed. We do have a Mana Weft Sliver, which I like, and we have a board wipe that I like, but we don't have really anything else to do and only 2 lands, so I think unfortunately we're going to have to go with the mulligan here, because I just don't think having a land that doesn't tap for, only 1 land that taps for any colored mana, this is much better. Yeah, we're going to do this one. So Feather does have some options here, and he's looking to get into them very quickly. We're just coming to play tapped. Blue, white, green, black, anything. So we've got a turn 3 First Sliver potentially, which could be really strong for us here. Thought about blocking that, but we'll do this instead. So this needs to come out for red. Very important that we don't miss what color we actually have to draw here. Blue, white, green. Okay, good. And so now we're just like pretty down to do the rush here. Since this does get Cascade, we're going to 100% take that to hit the Feather. Which is going to be really big for them having any kind of recursive value. And we do get to concede there for a pretty quick game 1. They tried to aggro beat us down. But really, this was pretty nutty as far as the hand goes. Like, a turn 3 First Sliver is pretty hard to beat. And then so next turn, we would have been 1 red short. So we probably would have done Cloud Shredder Sliver, so we could start getting in there with the flying, even though this could block. So maybe we would have actually done Spiteful Sliver first, try to hit something big. Or Crippling Fear even to wipe his board was the other thing I was thinking about. But yeah, it was a pretty quick game 1. So game number 2, we're against Tezzeret, Master of the Bridge. We do have a 3-lander. I'm pretty okay with this. Unfortunately, it's like the 3 we don't have, so we don't have a way to bring that in turn 2. But we do have a lot of ramp in this hand, potentially. So this just seems like a really good hand, and a Blur Sliver that we can then cascade into something else. It's going to depend how aggro their deck is going to be. Yeah, this is really strong now, actually. Okay, so we need to figure out what color we want to pick. We've got black, green, white. Okay, so we don't really need green. I think I'm going to go with red. It's red or black was definitely the choice there. Double black would be really strong, but we have a lot of red slivers we could draw into. Okay. And so, what we want to do here, I'm going to cultivate. I'm going to grab a black source and a green source. And so now we have the first sliver we can then put out next turn, with potential, if we, depending how we play it, to play him the next turn after. We might actually let him get binned, so we can exile the Chromatic Lantern or an artifact potentially. Losing his Psi Master Thopterist is really good for us there. Super down for this. We're gonna Gilded Goose. Yeah, because even if he has removal down, let's just play the first sliver again if we want to. Depending what the removal he's got here is going to be. He's still one away from the Tezzeret, which could be a problem. Does have 1 mana of any color available. Could spend it on the Fountain of Renewal, but that might be a mistake. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna start with this. See if we hit our 1-drop sliver with haste. There's a pretty decent chance we will. I'm pretty okay with this too. And so we cascade it. What we hit with the Faceless Agent. Ooh. No, we're just going to go safe. We're going to keep this, I think, is probably the play here. That's the best. So what's going to net us more mana? 1, 2, 3, 4? Yeah. Let's just go to combat. I don't want to... We can't really one-shot him, it looks like. And we don't want to play into a board wipe. We don't want to overdevelop. Okay, there we go. And so, yeah, basically we just don't want to overdevelop our board. If he does have a board wipe here. This gives us 3 slivers in hand to play. Okay. So I'm thinking this is it. But we're going to see. Still has access to 3 mana. Okay. And so now we're just going to go off. Assuming he doesn't just concede here, because that is the game. This is going to be a really quick video. Potentially. Yeah. Alright. That is game number 2. Yeah, so basically we were just kind of playing around the board wipe. Because if we did the board wipe, we were just going to first sliver again. We had the mana to do that. And then we were going to keep in hand our buff and menace to get around any kind of blockers you might put up. As well as way to exile any potential artifacts you put out in a hurry. Yeah, that is game number 2. Game number 3 with the first sliver. We are heading up against Klothys, God of Destiny. We do have decent mana. I'm a little hesitant. We're gonna try it. I'm not totally sold, but green, any color. So we're just missing red again. Who knew? Let's... So, by playing a Sliver, we're potentially baiting him to remove it, because then we can have a Sliver in the yard to Masked Vandal his Glothus, which, can honestly be a lot of what they want to do. We need to find a good time to put this out. I think it's now. I think we want to play this, yeah. Get flying going. We're still missing a black mana, which I would really like to have for this Crippling Fear coming up. That's totally fine, we expected that. Nice. So we're going to be able to Herald's Horn. Yeah. So let's Harbor Horn. Choosing Sliver. Because he's going to eat it otherwise, so we might as well get his out while we can. Now got down for the first Sliver. So we're feeling pretty good right now. Especially with that, because it means he's kind of running out of options. And since we at least have a Sliver in hand and a way to make Slivers, we're feeling pretty good. We'll take that hit. We'll reveal that and take that action. Yeah! That's exactly what I wanted. Perfect. So now we get to show off some of the power here. We have Putrefy to remove, depending if he plays any kind of big blocker. We're going to Putrefy that immediately. So... We're sure going to have to do you. I'm going to pick you. This little Cascade into a 1-drop. That if he does want to trade his whole board, we're more than fine with that. We'll block, because we'll just unearth if needed. Even if he has the bolt, like, we're totally fine with that. We're gonna decline. We're of course going to let that go to our hand, say good game. Alright. Quick game number 3. So this one worked out pretty well. I think, honestly, getting rid of the Klothys early. We didn't have a lot of stuff in the yard. But like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It potentially kept, and with this, Elder Gargoth potentially would have kept him off of being able to attack with Klothys. He wasn't getting to ping us at all with it. Not knowing it was in his hand. I think that was just probably the play, since he already would have had 5 the turn it came out with the Grumgully. Game number 4, Toski versus the First Sliver. No red mana again. Maybe I need to look into that, but we do have enough that we'll be able to Death Sprout. And we would just need white or red. I'm super on board for this, though. I like this. This gives us a pretty decent go-ahead. Since this gets out for black, yeah. Our opponent could be a little aggro. But I think if we can get out something fairly early, I think that's a good play. Since we'll at least be matching. Swansong's really strong here, actually, too. For some of the fight mechanic cards. So he will get a chance to play... Ooh. That's not what we want to see. Okay, so our opponent's not just, like, out of it. Which is good. And we're just going to let him get us there. If they want to get rid of the Flaxen Intruder, we're not happy about it. But there's a chance they do. But they might want to save it. Ah. No. Got rid of that. So he gets rid of the Intruder here. Yeah. Ah, unfortunate. But at least we've got that again. Still no double black, so we need to draw some more stuff. Ooh. Mox Intruder was pretty good against us there. I might have to think about that more in mono green lists. He is kind of doing the go wide hashtag Jistoski things. So they go from bricking on 2 lands to doing pretty well. I think they're going to take us out. Yep, it looks like they're going to get under us. And that's okay. I think that we just maybe should have mulliganed for a more aggressive hand. I'm not sure. It's still not entirely over, but with that many cards in hand, it's going to be pretty rough for us to do a comeback. We'll pass for now. Try to hit whatever he puts the counter on. Our 6th land will let our World Tree resolve. Yeah. Oh no. I think he's still got us here, unfortunately. Nice. Does get the Veil of Summer off, too. Yeah. Good game by our opponent. Toski managed to go under us and be very aggressive. Definitely a really good list is to go kind of like this Toski quick route. It'll get you under a lot of the decks that are kind of being greedy like I am. Alright, game number 5 against Nicol Bolas, Dragon Pharaoh, God Pharaoh. We are at 3 lands and a Cultivate, so we're going to try this out. I am super about it. Keep Agadeems, I think. Okay. Going to shock. Gotta be a little aggro here. We're gonna have to cultivate though. I think. What do we want? What do we want? White, red, green, blue, black. We're actually pretty okay if this gets countered. Okay, so we need to grab a black source. And let's grab a green source. Okay. Depending on what he does here, we've at least got the first sliver. Hit him with an oops. See if he falls for it. We'll have to sell. Who knows? Good news about Matok Minute is he actually lets us get around Heartless Acts. We're super on board for this. This is really nice for us. So you might be playing a thief-based deck. We're not happy about it, but that's fun. You want to know why that's fun? Because Herald's Horn basically acts as ramp for us, so... Keep that. Play... First Sliver again. Okay. We're going to discard... the Triome. I'm hoping to Reflection will jar Predatory Sliver, potentially. Reflections could be really big for us here. He does have enough for a board wipe. We'll take action. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we'll start here. We have the Cascade triggers regardless. This is probably the better call, since he didn't want to remove the First Sliver right away. Let's see what he's got. He's going to counter and bounce stuff. Countered the activated ability. Copied his Metallic Mimic. Interesting. So... let's do this. I have a feeling we're playing into a board wipe. So we're just going to play this. Naming slivers again. And we'll see. Does get a free creature. We don't know what he's going to run. Agent of Treachery is tough. We'll keep that. So we're going to bust. Bring our commander back. Trade one of these, but get a fat amount of damage in. We're fine with this. That's because we can potentially get the Unearthed Sliver. And if he plays a creature... I mean, I was pretty happy, honestly, we got around getting our Sliver back and everything, which is really nice. Yep. Knew that was coming. We're okay with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7... 8. It's still not looking good. Hoping he doesn't have a darn answer. We'll grab that. We're like really kind of not sure what we want to happen now, but 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got enough for his God Pharaoh and to recast it. Yeah, so we don't necessarily want to just kill God Pharaoh. We might just want to push damage. I'm not sure. Oh, were we exile? Okay, nothing too bad. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're gonna keep the token. Take action. If he wants to, he can down tick, but that's not going to benefit him too much.
A mind is an easy thing to waste.
Darn, so we get sort of our reflections here, which is not great. Hit him with that nice. That was a good play. We're still 2 mana away from getting First Slivered again, which would be bad. And Gonti having Death Touch is not great. Ooh, that's really not great for us. We really need a sliver off the top. Show me a sliver. Show me a sliver. Ooh, still pretty good. I'm okay with that. We'll bring him down 7. Unfortunately, Gonti has Death Touch, which is, like, not great for us. But... And I want to keep this alive, so we could potentially sliver combo out. Maybe I should have just done that. Could be a misplay on our part. I could totally see that being a misplay. I think that there's definitely... I don't know, because like otherwise he's basically forced to -4 if I don't. Which still keeps him off of ult. And I think that might be the best I have, maybe? Well, gets Agent of Treachery back, which... Rip. Go to the dead, yeah. Makes sense. Unfortunately, I think he's stabilized enough that it's going to be really hard for us to come back.
I know 88 ways to defeat. Pick one.
Okay. So... I don't really know what we're counting on. Oh. No, he's got us on lock now. That's a good game. Unfortunately, with the Agent of Treachery there... Agent of Treachery is a good card, guys. I don't know if you knew that, but that's an okay game. I'm okay with that. That felt like a really fun game. Wow, that was intense. That game 5, we were so close to being able to win that, I think. It just kind of came to touch and go. Now, the deck performed exactly like I thought it would. I think it was incredibly good, and there's some good matchups, but I think that it's not overbearing on the meta as far as like 5-color decks are known to go, especially in a 1v1 scenario, because I think that there's a lot of opportunities to get rid of the First Sliver before you can really go off. Now, how does this deck end up ranking? So we did go 3-2, so let's go ahead and check the litmus test. Now, as we can see, at 3-2, we rock all the way up to Luminous. This deck's future is actually looking pretty bright, as I think that with some tweaks, adjustments, and maybe a few new slivers added later on to Arena's life cycle, this deck could become a solid contender. It is also not too terribly rare heavy, except for the land base, which you can run with mostly commons and uncommons. You may just be a turn behind. That said, the deck is a lot of fun to pilot, and I really enjoy how different it feels to some of the other tribal decks we've seen so far, with the fact that it can really just explode in value, but in a different way than you might see from goblins and elves. With that in mind, I highly recommend checking out the deck. The deck list is down below, and if you wouldn't mind giving me a like or subscribe to see more content like this in the future, I'd greatly appreciate it. As always, be radiant.